Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast. I'm Ivanka Majic.
And my name is Michael Forrest. How's it going, Ivanka? How was your week?
Big news this week, Michael.
Oh.
We've got 18 followers on our Podcast Grand Twitter.
Why didn't you tell me constantly?
Yes. It's not so easy getting followers, is it?
I don't like that Twitter account name, but I'm sure I'll change my mind. I know it's Guilty Feminist to have a bad Twitter name as well, so...
Is Guilty Feminist now your go-to
I don't know.
comparator?
I just noticed that... Well, I know that ours is Podcast Grand, which is a disappointing one.
Yeah.
But there's this like Guilt Fem Pod, which is even more awkward. So I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter.
I don't think it matters. I think we just have to do something good, and then people will follow us.
Type in whatever. It won't matter.
They'll bother to look. Well, I'm glad that you're taking Guilty Feminist seriously.
Yeah. I like the intro. I like the insight. I like learning about. It's just I don't know. It's like it's a lot of new information for me. Kind of seeing another perspective.
Okay.
Otherwise I wouldn't get exposed to at all. Well, without having to ask people about their lives, but who wants to do that?
Who cares?
If you're not broadcasting it.
No, I mean, come on. If we're not recording, it's not a conversation. What about your week, Michael?
I've had a big one.
Oh, really?
It was a big deadline week on a project, and I had to, I've been going hell for leather on this React Native build, and just kind of, I took some time out to do some sort of nice animations and stuff, because I've been watching a lot of these sort of game developer talks, and how it's nice to put in those little kind of extra effects early, because it kind of breeds a bit of sort of love in the project, kind of makes you kind of excited about it, even though it's not really necessary for an MVP. Minimum viable product. Also, I've been preparing for this video shoot, and I finally kind of at the very last minute managed to figure out what I was going to do with that. I put out another video, Leaving the Laptop episode 3, which is finally I'm sort of into my stride of here's some things you can do rather than here's the philosophy and the principles. So I'm quite pleased that's out. And also they played my album in the gym on Monday morning, and it wasn't to mock me, it was because they liked it.
So, should we talk about success? Are you ready?
Let's talk about success, the ephemeral notion of success, ephemeral notion of. Page 46. Page 72. Sorry, I don't know what this joke is. Page 144. It's a book joke. It's like an index of a book joke. I'm a comedy genius.
Weirdo. You really have had a bad week, haven't you?
I'm so exhausted, and I've got so much to do today. So, yeah, geez.
Maybe we should make this a short podcast, because I'm not sure if our podcasts are too long. Are they too long?
Well, I think recording 2 hours of material is a bit much, and it'd be nice if we could get it a bit more concise. But what if we always have more to say?
Yeah.
So
the problem is I
think
actually quite enjoy talking to you for a couple of hours.
Exactly.
Anyway, I'm not done yet.
But it's definitely therapy.
Oh.
This is definitely last week I got some therapy out of that. This week I'm actually I've been looking forward to this for my therapy session.
Yeah, I've described it as therapy to somebody as well. Michael and Ivanka's therapy session.
Grand therapy podcast.
Yes.
So my sort of thoughts on success are, the truth of it is, it's a very relative notion, isn't it?
Very.
It all comes from what do you expect, what do you hope for versus what do you have. And unhappy, ambitious people like me, that's like a constantly moving target. No, I'm not too bad. But it's possible to be, if you can be content, if you can just choose to set your level at a slightly lower one, then you could just feel successful the whole time. But so something that happened to me this week was I feel like I made a choice between. So we've talked about keeping score with money as a proof or not proof of success. And I decided like money was not going to be my metric of success. But like that happiness and kind of fulfillment, I wanted to kind of pursue that more. So that's why, I don't sort of throw myself into things on the basis of I'm going to make lots of money out of it, because I've seen that doesn't lead to happiness. I've seen that leads to all sorts of new kinds of weird, annoying problems. But what happened to me at the weekend was I found myself in a small group of people where my perception was that their idea of success was very attached to money. And so then I felt like it sort of started making me feel like a complete failure, even though they weren't really saying anything. But it was like the first questions were kind of like, when are you going to Japan? I'm like, and my first reaction is sort of like, I took 3 months of not working, and I'm kind of like money's a thing because I've been kind of pursuing my other stuff, but I didn't want to but I just felt really defensive about that, and just really felt like I wasn't succeeding at all, because in their eyes I imagined that I had to show monetary score in order to be sort of but the difference between what I'm pursuing, I realised, is that that it has to be an internal thing. It has to come from inside me. Like it has to be like I have to be self-assured that I am on a path that is different. And whereas if it's money, you can sort of say, well, I've got this much money and that's proof. So yeah, I just really came a cropper of that and had a really sort of freaked out kind of interaction with some people.
It is very hard though, because what you were saying about the sort of ambition, success, if you're less, if you set your bar lower, you're going to feel more successful. And there's this constant, what's driving, do you want to lose your ambition? How do you, it's difficult because you don't want to live in a constant fear and anger. But at the same time, you do need a sort of a driver to something to make you keep moving forward. Because I think in some ways you have to keep trying to move forward, otherwise you actually start slipping backwards. Like, life is a bit of a struggle. It's not a straightforward thing that is a given. And if you're not trying to achieve something, be it whatever, I found it quite difficult. I was sort of anticipating what you might be talking about with success, so I watched some TED videos. I was like, who does Michael like? Michael likes Alain de Botton, or however you pronounce his name. I watched his video.
I try and listen to him, but I don't know if I'm always internalising his. He does have some good insights.
I listened to him, and then I listened to and he talks about the in his talk that I did as part of my homework, he talks about the fact that, success is all good and well as long as it comes from your idea of success and not someone else's idea of success. And there's this whole problem at the moment in society where we've got this idea that anybody could be Bill Gates. All you need is a garage and a computer, or and that's just not true. And I think this is what you were talking about. You referenced Zuckerberg talking about the money he came from or the background he had. So I listened to that, and I talked to my sister who fosters, and she's got some outstanding stats on how difficult it is for a child who's been in care to succeed, even if you define that as stay out of prison. Apparently something like 1% of kids in the UK will be in the care of the local authority, but 61% of them will have 61% of girls will end up in prison. Right. or incarcerated for something, and there's some really depressing stats about how little, how small your chance of getting GCSEs is if you're in care or have been in care, or if you're, and that's the same whether you're in care or you're just funny word. Oh, if you're a child in need, and a child in need is defined as simply as poor, so good parents but not enough money, and you're equal to a child in terms of statistics and ability to pass your GCSE. You know, the chance of you getting good GCSEs are the same as a child who's in care, and that's quite depressing, because when we talk about success, you and I, for example, we're degreed, we're professionals, we've got skills that people will pay us for and we have this amazing thing where, I was thinking about what success means to me, and I think it's brilliant that I can work 3 days a week and earn enough money that I don't have to work the other 2 days of the working week, or I don't have to get paid for the other 2 days of the working week, so I can hang out and do podcasts and stuff. But you know, that's amazing, and that
isn't it?
It's just brilliant. And I was thinking about it this morning as I was pottering around the house putting the washing out. I was like, check me, my success. I get to do the washing on a Friday morning. But it's that sort of the being judged thing is really, that's what, you know. So the situation you're describing, that happens to me all the time.
Really?
Well, yeah, because you're talking about, oh, look at her, she's earning a 6-figure salary and she drives this car and she's got 3 children and she's blah, 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 and she's an amazing mother, and she's like, oh God, I just can't do all this, and I don't want to do all those things, but I want people to think I'm as brilliant as she is.
I'm sure they
I want you to think
should.
I'm brilliant. Why do people not know? And I think there's this kind of, it's a weird thing, I think, being a woman, is that, and I do think it comes into it, men and women are judged differently when it comes to success. On the one hand, you can go, oh, well, I'm just a girl, so I don't need to earn so much money. That's the one sort of like the cop. But on the other hand, if you are a woman, you do, you know, there's an expectation that you have to be, you know, successful, thin, beautiful, an amazing mother, brilliant cook, makes her own clothes, can, you know, pack clothes, whatever. It's like, leave us alone. It's like, so it's success is so, you know, if we listen to Alan, or Alain, or however you're supposed to say his name, is Al. If you listen to,
I just call him Al.
If you listen to Al, you should, you know, the key thing in all of this is being conscious of what you think is successful.
What's your metric of success, and do you feel successful?
Freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom is, and you know, ultimately, one of the sort of little epiphanies I had on that motorbike trip was this whole thing where money is just freedom tokens. It just gives you the. Right. It is. You go off. If you've got money, you can choose. You could choose how many days a week to work. You can choose to reject a project. You can choose to take time off and not earn money. You can choose. You have choices. If you haven't got money, or it's very difficult for you to earn money, you have no choice. You have to turn up on, you know, agree to a 0 hours contract. You have to, you know, live a very different life. You cannot go on holiday wherever you please. I mean, you might not be able to go to Japan this year, but there's no reason to think that you can't go next year.
I'm doing it this year.
Okay, sorry. But, you know, this is...
First half. It's going to happen. There will be no stopping me. I will use pure force of will to make this happen.
But, you know, it's that kind of thing. It's like we have these choices. I choose to, you know, not earn over a certain amount because I can, you know, it's like I choose not to live in a bigger house or whatever, you know. It's like there's choices. It's about choices and freedom. And for me, I think that's what success has ultimately boiled down to, or what I consider to be most valuable. Because as we've discussed previously, whilst I have been very uppity with people who I think don't aren't paying me what they should be paying me based on my efforts and market rates and all that business. But I've never actually gone, right, by the time I am 25, I must be earning X amount of money. That's that's not been my target. I have only ever got upset because I think people aren't paying me what they should be paying me. Not because, I want a 6-figure salary. But I'm sure. But then there's also this thing of, because we had talked about the fabulously wealthy and how wealthy they are, and the fact that it's a scorecard. I mean, why do we admire them so much?
Well, I don't anymore. Well, but also now, but then, there is something about the lifestyle, about, imagine just being able to, go somewhere nice every weekend and hang out on a beach or a chalet or whatever and just have things brought to you. But, I don't know. I guess people kind of are attracted to you as well, so it's less work, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. What do you think? Like, are there any public figures or people that we know who aren't rich but we believe are successful? Who are those people? Mother Teresa.
I don't know who I consider successful. I mean, I suppose, like, it's hard because I'm quite able to. I feel like I can visualize a lot of, like, the people that we usually traditionally sort of put on a pedestal as having this sort of fabulous, exciting life. I find it quite easy to imagine their sort of mundane day-to-day life and kind of see that those moments we glimpse are just like moments in their lives, and they've still got to, have dinner, go to the toilet, like, get from A to B. There's a lot of, like, mundanity to everyone's lives, and I think it's a bit naive to imagine that there isn't. And even if it's, like, you're not cycling, you're getting Ubers everywhere, or, like, there's a limit to how quickly you can get around London, for example. So there's a lot of, the more money you've got, the more maybe you're sitting in cabs to go to a meeting with another, influential person. But there's still, I think it's still probably not as exciting as it looks.
No. But I was thinking, really what the success bit is counterbalanced by the judgy bit. I think It's that sort of, why do we get upset when we feel people don't think we're successful or something? It's because we're being judged, and I don't like to be judged. I do think that I'm a very non-judgmental type person. I very much, and I think you're similar in that you've had enough shit go wrong that when you meet somebody who's, I don't know, you don't sort of assume that they're in some way lesser because they're not earning enough or they're struggling in some way. It's just because you just never know what's happened to somebody or what's going on in their lives. But the belief in the meritocracy is, it's false, really. You've reminded me beautifully, because that was also what was discussed in that thing. And we know from open source that meritocracy is a very funny word, frankly, because there's a couple of things like what is of merit. Might be that, in my meritocracy, being really environmentally conscious is of merit, whereas in someone else's meritocracy, being really Machiavellian is of merit. Whereas, and what I observed in open source, that it wasn't necessarily the people who were brilliant programmers that were rated highly, but the ones that were very good at telling everybody that they were really good programmers that rated highly. And
that's across the board, though.
That's everywhere, everywhere, everything.
It's like Isaac Newton, like everywhere. It's more about like your personal PR sometimes. I mean, you still have to have something to back it up. And it's like that thing of like people with money. We know they have money because they drive past in a flashy car and they've got a marble top in their kitchen. Or some people with money will tell you how much they've spent on stuff. I remember there's somebody that I was very good friends with at sixth form, and then he went. There were three of us, and
2 of us went to university and the other one didn't. And the one that didn't started earning money really quickly, but had a bit of a chip on his shoulder because he hadn't been to university. And so every time we'd meet up with him, because we were skint students, he'd go, see this jacket cost me £90. See this jacket. We'd like, you know, whatever, I don't give a shit about your jacket. But it's like that kind of need to ram down your throats that success wasn't necessarily getting a degree.
My idea of success
Yeah.
has evolved a lot over the years, or let's say reduced a lot over the years, because I think when I was younger, and I mentioned this, I think my benchmark for success was living forever and being like a rock star, but like that doesn't sell out, that does really weird stuff that shouldn't get to number one, that gets to number one. So that was my initial kind of...
It's very complicated.
And obviously like billionaire, whatever.
Obviously.
And then those things, you know, as sort of reality sets in, you kind of like go, okay, you temper them a lot. And then now, you know, I've tried, I think about this every so often, like what is my metric? What do I consider success? And so for like, and it really is music. If I book a gig, can I play to like a couple of hundred people that know my stuff, like on a regular basis? That's kind of what I'm shooting for still. And I still, even though I kind of nailed that down like 5 or 6 years ago, I don't feel any closer to it. And I haven't played a gig for like 2 years or a year and a half.
That can't help.
No. I've got one next weekend though. Like I'm finally breaking the seal on it, and I'm just like, okay, it's going to be a small afternoon thing. I'm not expecting much, but I've designed about 5 or 6 different live sets since I last played live, and like practiced them and then not played them to anyone. But yeah, so the music thing, but then it kind of becomes couched in terms of sort of social media numbers. After that, so now I've got my little dashboard of like how many YouTube subscribers I've got, how many Instagram followers I've got, and it's just So a point I wanted to make was another metric of success is competition. Like you enter into competition with other people and you try and come first or second. And that's a sort of like another proof of success. And that's in sports, or that can be in music. Like, you know, and it was, you know, I won a band competition when I was like 18, like with our band. And that was good, but I haven't really got anything like that since. And I've sort of withdrawn from that world as well. I'm like, I don't want to play the game. So not only am I sort of denying myself like the money success thing, I'm also denying myself the kind of, I don't want to do things in those terms, because I've got like ideas of my own about how things can be, but it means that I'm sort of like very much out on my own. And, but yeah, I want to be able to have my partner in life feel safe and secure and not be kind of like stressing her out with my kind of the unpredictability of my, so I want to kind of get like a bed of security there, but I'm kind of way off that at the moment as well. So by all of my own personal measures of success, I'm like failing massively at the moment. But if you looked at, if you were just looking at it as, have you got massive amounts of freedom? Have you got access to influential people? Have you got like all the kind of tools that you could possibly need for what you like doing? Those are all like enormous yeses. Like I've got such a great situation, but I'm sort of like fixated on this thing that I can't seem to get. I can't seem to get any closer to it. It's weird because I sort of feel like I'm not at all. But
are you talking about this sort of this thing we read about one of the things that helps keep us happy is to count our blessings? Like, you know, every day, what have I got? You know, let's focus. I've got a husband, a child. I've got, you know, these are major things. Every time I get ratty about things, I have adopted that as a bit of a technique, because I can get, you know, I can see things through a dark lens as well. And it's like, right, but look at these beautiful things I've got in my life that are brilliant. And I wouldn't have imagined 10 years ago, I was miles off this. This was a pipe dream. And so it's kind of it doesn't mean that things, and you have a lot of imagination. Something's always going to be frustrating you. On the subject of this is being a therapy session.
It's funny because as you say that, I was sort of single and lonely for so long, and I found such a really great situation now. I'm in such a good relationship. I'm just so happy with it, and it's so insane that I would fixate on the one thing that I haven't got, but it's like that's what's driving me to everything. That's what's kind of pushing me, and it's And that's something that, a therapist said to me. He said, I'm sort of like, I think you're fixed enough, but I wouldn't want to take away that kind of dissatisfaction and drive that makes you create these things that you create. So it's sort of like, maybe my drive has reduced a little bit with happiness. Maybe I'm not kind of like out at every opportunity, like trying to further it, but I think I've got a more sort of stable thing. And I don't know, man.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's a day when I don't get frustrated by something that I can't do or haven't done as well as I'd like to do, particularly working in the public sector. It's like shipping the most straightforward things are like,
I can't even.
Fucking nightmare. But having said that, and you're like, come on, people, we solved this 20 years ago. Can we move on, please? But and I get frustrated about. I'm trying to think of whether I am sort of entering a bit of a phase myself of self-reflection and what it is who I want to be when I grow up, or for my next bit of growing up, because there is that constant reevaluation. And then you tell people. So, for example, I'm going to be, in a month or so, I'm going to stop working at the council with my contract. And people go, "What are you going to do next?" I'm like, "Nothing for a minute. Just going to sit still for a moment and reflect on what it is that actually brings me satisfaction." Because for me, it's not. I don't make music. I don't have that kind of an outlet. But when I work on building something, I want it to be meaningful. And I want to feel like my contribution has been valuable. And I want to feel like I have contributed the best that I can, or that my effect has been. I want people to go, "Brilliant. Thank God she came in, she sorted it out, and now look at it. By these 5 measures, this is better than it was before." I like that. I like being effective and trying to get all those 3. You can often work on meaningful things, but the ability to be effective is somewhat restricted because it could be anything from, stakeholders with more power than you or, whatever. But... And then there's that sort of that sense that I came in and I was able to do the best of all that I know how to do. And is that for me? It boils down the things that have been going, because I'm now in my 40s, but I'm not terribly grey-haired, thankfully. I'm not terribly wrinkled, and I still get that. And again, I don't know if it comes from me or comes from people on the outside. That sort of like. I'm not sure I've been heard or taken seriously. So when I make a recommendation, I have to do extra to be heard. And, again, that could just be 20 years of, "Hello, little girl, you're looking nice today." But yeah, so it's those kind of, what do I care what these people think? Or, that particular person, why do I care about other people's view on me when I don't really look at other people and go, "Well, you haven't done very well." I start feeling happier about the work I've done and feeling like it is good enough, have I lowered my standards? Like, or will that cause me to lower my standards? Is it better to always be able to look at something, go, I can see all the ways it could be better, it's not very good, I feel like I failed? Or is it better? But because I can still acknowledge that something was a good piece of work. And I think that's important. If you want to deliver a project, you have to be able to go, this is good, ship it. Because you can get very hung up on this nebulous idea of perfection. But I always feel like if I reach a point, if I allow myself to acknowledge that I'm successful, will I become rubbish?
Is there complacency that sets in? Like, what would happen?
What would happen? Like,
because there's no end, but there's never an end to it, and that's why you kind of move the goalposts after each thing. It's like, okay, now what can? If you succeed at something, it's like, okay, now what can I do?
Now that I know that, or now that I've done that, but it's things like keeping fit. There's no point at which you are fit, and therefore you need to stop trying to be fit. You're kind of like, I have a low, my lowest line, if I can't run 5k, then I'm not fit, and that is an unacceptable situation to be in. Now, from 5k upwards, I've been all sorts of levels of fit, and I've adjusted it. It'll be more about interested in being strong or flexible or fast or distance or cycling or whatever it might be. But it's a constant, and you have to change it, otherwise you don't stay fit, you don't stay healthy. Do you see what? So it's the same in work. Yeah. Like, okay, I've got to get really good at presenting. Okay, I've got good at presenting. Yeah, but now I've got to get good at writing presentable material or doing. I don't know. Like, I think if you're not constantly evaluating.
I feel like I've got that with learning at the moment. I've sort of like looking for these new kind of fields of knowledge. So I'm learning all about like feminism and transgender politics and all these things. And also I'm just reading got this big book about economics, which I'm trying to sort of get through. And like, I think, it's like, okay, I kind of feel like I know about as much as reasonable to know on these subjects. So let's sort of branch out and try some new things. And that's a good drive, right?
Yeah,
that's a good
that's one of the things. Apart from the therapy aspect of this podcast, I'm enjoying the educational aspect. It's like, right, I need to go and read something, inform myself. Otherwise, I'm gonna like. It's just very tiring, all this trying to be successful.
Oh yeah, very exhausting. This is a thought I just had. Like, I need to so the reason I have a browser extension that I created for myself that shows me how many followers on each thing is because it's not because I care about it. It's because the people that I need to help me care about it. So that's not my metric of success, how many YouTube subscribers I've got. It's someone else's. And I think actually the key to this is to not completely ignore anyone else's metrics of success and just get on with it. Like when I was doing these shows, I was doing it every couple of weeks for a while, just booked this room, I was just doing it entirely for me. I was like, I don't care if this is a private booking and I just bring in a couple of friends come. I'm going to enjoy it. And I did really enjoy it. And it wasn't until the voices of this kind of, the bar take wasn't really enough, until those things, you need to get more of a following, you need more of a draw, you need to book this and that and that. And as soon as it became about someone else's metrics of success, I just found that impossible to reconcile with my own. And I think, but the most successful people, I think, don't care about anyone else's metrics of success. They're absolutely just looking at their own craft, their own things that they want to do. And I meet my musical heroes. I met Mouse on Mars, spent a weekend with them, and I'm kind of fixated on this. I've got to share everything and show off that I'm here. And they did this really nice video, edited it of me in their studio, me kind of playing on this synth, me playing this other thing, me doing this thing, me chatting to them. And I was like, when are we going to put this out? And they were like, oh no, it's just for you. It's just, it's just, we don't need to publish it. I'm like, what? But, what? And yeah, just sort of seeing that they're just fixated on, they're just looking at their craft, and that's what makes them so magnetic. And I think by looking at, if I look at money and if I look at other people's ideas of what's successful, I am ruining my ability to, if I just kind of, I've decided what is important to me and I should just only care about that. So I should delete this goddamn extension. I should stop looking at how many Facebook followers I've got. I'm a bit annoyed this week that YouTube you've got to have 1,000 YouTube subscribers to get certain privileges, which basically boil down to, can I earn 71 cents a month from advertising on my videos? So who gives a shit? So if I'm not a YouTube partner, who gives an actual fuck? I think, maybe the answer is just to kind of being centered and being satisfied is just not to take into account those kind of like poisonous, judgments that you imagine other people are having, and just be true to yourself.
True to yourself. Yeah. Okay. So here's a bit of a
counterpoint.
Can't you delegate that shit away? Because somebody is worrying about, I don't even know who you're talking about. Mouse what? Who?
Mouse on Mars.
Mouse on Mars.
And but they collaborated with the, as of yesterday, late Marky Smith. So they've been sort of they've been talking a little bit.
So, but they will, it might not be in the public channels that you're used to operating and doing your sort of marketing in, but somebody's introduced them to somebody to do something somewhere.
Yeah.
And unless they actually, somebody's their dad or mum or something, then they have made friends with somebody who's helping them. And I think there is also a point that if you are to focus entirely on your craft, you cannot focus on promoting yourself at the same time.
Well, I mean, welcome to my flipping world.
But that's
welcome
the
to my life.
that's the same thing we were talking about, with that TED talk about, in any business there is more than one person. Basically, I think I was going to talk about the fact that having a life partner makes life much more pleasant.
Okay.
So therefore, having a sort of a business partner also makes life more pleasant. Because if you want to do, if you could simply make music for yourself and your friends and not worry about anybody ever else hearing it, which is fine, but the point of music is for people to hear it. It's not for you to write it and sit at home with your headphones on listening to it. So go on.
But obviously, in the back of my mind, as I'm saying all of this, I've got this little voice going, and then if you stopped focusing on the followers and things, they'd probably really start flooding in. Then people would probably start being drawn to you, and they would help you and do things and invite you to things. Then, if you could just stop looking at it yourself, it's really hard to not have that kind of I'm not going to look, but secretly.
But we all have that. I mean, there's always that. If I pretend that I don't want followers, then I will become mysterious, like the mysterious person that everyone's interested in. But, all that is all just fucking... Yeah, okay. It's like...
The truth is, people that are interested in followers... If you're interested in followers and nothing else, sure, just do something humiliating. I think that's the nice thing about the day job that I've had, is that I've been able to just focus on producing the work, and there's always account people, project managers, other people kind of taking care of that client interaction.
Yeah.
And actually, last year, I kind of almost took on this job, but when I realised I was going to be having to deal with contracts and kind of all this sign-off processes, and it was they were going to be somewhere else. It wasn't just going to be able to be me in a room with some people and there'd be a trust relationship. I just kind of moved away from it, because that's a really nice thing to have in your, that means you can just work. And I would just love to find that with music. Just find that manager, find that person that is obsessed with squeezing out every bit of profit. so that I can just focus on what I'm doing. But yeah, it's very hard to find.
But I think this
especially
is
with what I'm
this
doing.
thing that you cannot be good at everything, and it requires different heads. It's like I've been working with a developer at the moment who has never worked with a sort of somebody with a product manager role. He's actually he's very inexperienced, and I must have told him, I'm going to say 1,000 times, like, look, don't talk to the client. Let me talk to the client. You focus on having your developer brain on, because if you being in programming mode and being in talking to people mode and dealing with their fears and insecurities is not the same bit of your brain, and flipping between the two is hard work. Some people can do both, some people cannot do both, and it doesn't matter if you're not good at everything. I think that's your problem with your definition of success. You want to be good at everything, which is fine for an ambition, but actually, why do you want to be good at sales? Let someone else do that.
I don't want to be good at sales. I want someone else to help me, and I'm not good at it. But yeah, I see your point. I do try to be good at way too many things.
Like, I can do this, or I can program this.
Yeah,
like I'll there's some software that I can write some software that'll do this, and then it's like, which there is a lot of situations. A bit of software is the answer, but there are many where, especially things like a lot of sales and marketing and PR is about interpersonal skills and the ability to talk to anybody any day, even if you think they're an idiot.
Nah, well, no.
Discuss.
Unless, not well. I can do it if it's the right kind of like,
if all the planets align.
But then I can't. Well, if I know that I've got to be. If it's very clear cut, then I think I can do it. But like sustaining it, or but it is. I think it's not necessarily can you do it or not. It's switching takes time. Switching between those two different modes takes a lot of time, and you've got to like really, even just switching from programming to like graphic design or something. You've really got to like. It takes a couple of days to kind of get into that different state. Like, it's a more relaxed. You can't do it in this kind of like hammering away way when it comes to like laying out. You've got to kind of like let it take a little while and have failures and kind of try again.
And building working relationships with people that you want to, which is what really, finding somebody to do your PR, finding somebody to promote you, so talking to all the promoters, talking to everybody, that takes an enormous amount of positive energy. And it's exhausting. And
you don't get it back in this industry at all. You get nothing back.
I think in sales in general, those kind of, because it is sales, whether by whatever sort of definition or, all the way along the scale, it's some form of, hi, I'm really interested in you. Tell me, let me, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, look at me, look at this thing I'm selling. And really ultimately the only reward is going to be, money, followers, whatever, But you might have, it's like, why do people go to networking events? Networking events do generate business, without a doubt. But you have to do a lot of, hi, what's your name and where do you come from? Hi, yes, I'm really enthusiastic about the things that I do. Let me talk about it. It's like,
Well, I had a bit of a realisation about this week as well. Something, because Sharon's always saying, can't you just be like you are with me, with everyone? And I'm like, I don't know how, but one thing I realised was with Sharon, like, if she's not paying attention to me, I'm happy to kind of be annoying. Like, hey, look at this, hey, what are you doing? Put that down. Like, pushing her phone out. Hey, look at what I'm doing. But like, because I just absolutely trust and know that she'll, she's very kind. Whereas I just think about doing that in the real world, or with someone. I just think about, for example, going upstairs. There's this artist management agency with a couple of people, and they're very much music industry. And actually, one of them is married to the person that I need, the actual person that I decided a year ago was the person that I need, right? But the thought of kind of going up and just going, hey, look at me. It just makes me think of just I'm going to get immediately shut down. And that's a childhood thing, right? That's your dad kind of not having time or being angry all the time. Just like, I never really, there was no scope for me to kind of go, hey, look at, like, to be sort of vulnerable and just kind of look and just open. Hey, look at me. I'm interrupting what you're doing because I'm me. And it's just something I've always been terrified to do. But it's something I thought, well, maybe I should just try and do that a little bit more. Just, hi.
Yeah.
It's a bit annoying, just sometimes.
Be annoying in a jolly way.
Yeah, like hey, I'm really excited about this.
Yeah.
Look,
yeah.
just go up with my like blue perspex flashing lights guitar thing. And go, hey, look at this. It's stupid.
I'd love to see you do that.
And then they'll be like, what? They'll look at me funny and I'll go and die. But anyway, whatever.
Yeah, but you won't though. You won't die from embarrassment.
Well,
it's not possible.
No, I think I'll be all right.
It's very hard to draw attention to what you're doing in a positive way because one of my therapists taught me to, because I always say you, not you, Ivanka, I find it difficult to draw positive attention to what I've done or what I'm doing or what I want to get done because I'm immediately critical of it. I don't know. I don't know.
You when you're kind of putting yourself there, it's like I just sort of saw myself in the webcam and like I was like, I'd like to be like smiley and happy, but they'll see my teeth. They'll immediately notice my weird gap in my wonky lower teeth immediately and just fixate on that, and that's all they'll see. And then I talked to a friend that they're like I've known for like 10 years, and they'll be like, oh, I never noticed you had a gap there.
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
I was about to ask what gap this was. Oh yeah.
Missing a tooth since 20
Michael
years.
Forrest's got a gap in his teeth.
I got a nothing. Like, well, it's actually the tooth is in my gum.
Wow.
Up there.
That's exciting.
But they extracted this one, and then I kind of just failed to go to the follow-up appointment, and now it's just still in my gum, and it's fine.
You could eat. You could chew food, bite things.
It's fine. It was weird eating an apple. Like, I had to do it differently for a bit, but now I'm just used to it.
Very good. Basically, what you're saying is that the minute you put yourself out there in your head, you're imagining they're going to see all the things that you haven't done or that could be better instead of fixating on the thing that you are showing them, which is good.
They're going to see the thing that I know is not 100%
Yeah.
and nothing else.
Yeah. Well, I get that.
When
I think from, like, there's this whole thing about why don't more women speak at conferences and why don't more women da-da-da. And I think about, well, I've been doing what I do for 20 years. Maybe I should be one of those women that talk at conferences. Yeah. Like, then lots of people will be looking at me, which, I'm not sure that I'm into.
The male gaze is not very nice, is it?
But no, it's just like I don't even think about it. It's just like, why do I want to put myself out there and expose I don't know why I want to do that. To be honest with you, I don't know why I'm recording a podcast. So maybe they're two.
Well,
but anyway, but then you're like, but if I stand up and talk about this project, they'll know, but there's all these other things. I think that's part of my personal problem is that, for example, when I write a blog post or when I do a presentation, I know there's a million other things that you kind of going to, I think, and maybe this is a woman thing, I'm not finishing my sentences, that I'm going to stand up and do a presentation on something fucking brilliant that I've done. And people are going, yeah, but did you know that the server needs an ISO 27001 certificate? Yes. Move on. there's all these kind of degrees get slammed quite a lot at the moment. Like, they're easier to get. They're not worth the paper written. Not everyone's got one. Not everyone needs a degree. That is true. But everybody needs a marketable skill of some description. Because, a plumber is still going to do better than somebody who's a totally unskilled worker. So it's not necessarily a hairdresser's going to do better. They're going to have more choice. It's not about degrees, but it's about learning and skilling yourself up either to an intellectual pursuit or a manual skill. And without that, you really don't. You have no choice. You have to do what you're asked to do, or told to do. And that's really, truly, the only way out of all of these things is education for everybody. And it's like, I really like looking at all these kids in care and their chances of success, the care levers. It's like things like Lydia told me about some talk she listened to by somebody who was in care and is successful in life by the measures of went to university, has a job, has a fulfilling life. Fulfilling life is an interesting, can you have a relationship with another person? If you want to, can you have children where you love them? Can you look after them? All that kind of thing. That fulfilling life doesn't have to mean rich or even doing something high powered. But so this person goes and does talks to foster carers and people like that and gives like a parallel example of a day. So first it's two teachers in the staff room going, Katie's late again today, I've been nagging her all in, blah blah blah, she's nothing but trouble, that girl. And then you've got Katie's narrative, which is her social worker wanted to have a meeting with her before school and it overran, and because she's going to have contact with her mother adjusted again, and it's and so she's come to school, and then the next one it's like, she hasn't got a PE kit again, I've told her once, I'm going to have to put her in detention. Then you've got the alternative narrative is that the foster carer and social services are arguing over who should pay for the PE kit. So therefore, until that's settled, Katie can't bring her PE kit to school. And it's like, if you're, and that's not even referencing the actual traumatic event that brought Katie into social care in the first place. Who knows what's happened to her, physical abuse, mental abuse, or, it's horrible to contemplate. And now this person coming into school really, they need more love and support than a child that hasn't had to deal with all that stuff, even for them to sort of meet, never mind exceed expectations.
My kind of first thoughts as you started talking about that were like, I think you've got to play the game. If you play the game, you probably it's a bit arbitrary and it's a bit weird, but if you play it, then at least you can get like a bit of paper that means you can kind of do the next thing. But like, what makes you just not want to play the game? That's one thing. Like, some people just don't want to play the game because they just don't think they can do it, or for whatever reason. But actually, wasn't even considering that they were kind of being prevented from playing the game, by the circumstances. And that's that's absolutely heartbreaking that you don't even get a chance to kind of try.
No, and I think the people that don't want to kind of opt out, get to school at some point and opt out of participating, that is a separate problem. And I'm always interested to know why people do that, and maybe there is a bit of. So in Yugoslavia in school, and even now, the parents will threaten the children with, having to look after goats or sheep. Do you want to do your homework, or do you want to spend the rest of your life digging the earth and looking after sheep? That's like the ultimate threat. And it's like I think there is something about and even in that environment, of course, you get kids that aren't interested. But are they not interested, or have we not found a way to make them interested, or to pique their interest, or to help them be creative, or that that talk we saw at Meaning, that teacher guy, that was a very inspiring talk about that sort of schools designed to get people to sit still. and put their hand up to say they need to go to the loo, are not necessarily designed to help them fulfill their potential.
Yeah, and yeah.
So
I kind of think that the system is ridiculous, and like I've stayed in like I kind of got my undergraduate degree, and then it was just like, this is so messed up, like this is such a weird, convoluted system that values such weird things that like it's good if you've got like enough kind of spare cycles to be able to, like brain cycles or just time or like freedom, to be able to like succeed at something that is inherently like just poorly designed and just not very appealing and not very interesting a lot of the time. But if we could, but knowledge, learning itself is obviously, it's addictive and it's fun, and you'd sort of find a different way to do it if the pointless educational frameworks don't do it.
But and there is definitely in all of these things, like, to what extent do you want to play the game? But if you don't want to play the game the whole way, because even passing exams is a skill that is separate to acquiring knowledge. It's not the same thing. Or being able to apply your knowledge is not the same as being able to pass an exam, for sure. Yeah. But then you don't need to you don't necessarily have to opt out entirely in order to, you could just play the game enough, and then to be able to have your freedom, the freedom of choice. And then
I think that's what I did.
Yeah. It's like
enough, just enough.
Oh yeah, I was very much like that. I did a sort of cost benefit analysis. It's like, right, to what extent do I need to learn this skill which is not useful? I mean, I have to do it now in the sort of local government, learning how to play the game of getting things through the system is not transferable skills. It doesn't add value to the project, but that's the process. And if I don't learn how to play it, then I'm not going to be able to do anything. So, which is wasteful in the extreme, but it is what it is at the moment. So what can you do?
What have we learnt today? I don't know. I think I've got, from my therapy, I'm gonna stop looking at, I think I've decided to stop looking at other people's, like, stuff that other people care about, and only stuff that actually relates to what I care about. Because like all this, I'm so sick of looking at 265 Facebook followers, Facebook likes, and just going, like, when a promoter sees that, they're going to be like, whatever. I need it to be at 10,000, and then they will give me what I want. I'm just so sick of it, and I think it's just counterproductive to look at it any longer. I can see what the behaviour is like with my current thing, and maybe if I stop looking at it, its behaviour will change. I'll have more. I'll focus on things that are more interesting. How about you? Any thoughts? Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. No. No, I think that I was going to say something kind of hippie and like, we're all successful in our own way. If you're seriously in pain and you've managed to get out of bed and make yourself a cup of tea, that's successful. It's all got its own framework.
Just need to lower the bar a little bit, or maybe just rewind. If we could just like rewind our brains to 5 years previously and like remember what you wanted then you'd feel good about what you have now.
Or what we haven't talked about is how much it matters whether or not you're successful. Like,
does it matter?
Does it matter?
Does it mean anything? Like,
what does it mean to your day to day? I don't know. I suppose it's just a sense. More meditation, people. That's what we need. Because it's just a sense of self, maybe, isn't it? Like, I still don't know. Maybe someone else has got the answer to how do you, where's the crossover point between reframing your success to fit what you have achieved or what you are achieving or what you can achieve, and not reducing your target so much that you underachieve. Maybe it's about how about you're allowed to be happy and still remain ambitious, or still have goals, like still have things you haven't achieved. It's okay to feel good about where you are today and still go, but when I can run 5k in under 25 minutes, then I'll be, I'll be happy about that too. But I'm happy about being able to do it in 30.
Then I will treat myself to a lovely cigarette.
Is that still your reward? Mine would be more of a, cake.
Mine would definitely be more of a cake. It would not. There's no such thing as one cigarette, people.
Right. Okay then.
Thanks for listening. That was our grand podcast. If you like the podcast, you can find our Twitter account at Podcast Grand.
Yes.
And we're on Instagram at Grand Podcast. That's Twitter, Podcast Grand. Instagram, Grand Podcast. Grandpodcast.com. Just go there. And give us find us on iTunes. The link's fixed on the website now, so that on Apple devices it just goes to the right place. You can find me, Michael Forrest, on Twitter and michaelforrestmusic.com.
And you can find me at Ivanka on Twitter, ivanka.blog, and that's it really. But what would be really nice is if you did some following of Podcast Grand, just to make me feel better, and maybe write a nice review on iTunes.
Apple Podcasts or Stitcher. Give us a review.
Yeah. Give us some stars and some reviews and stuff.
Give us a 5-star review, please.
5 stars and a nice little bit of words as well, saying how lovely we are. That would be cool.
The music on this is all mine, by the way. And some of it's released, but a lot of it's just little bits and pieces. But I'd be really interested to find out if people have any favourite things, and I can turn them into full tracks and make them available.
Oh.
Because I've got a lot of kind of little ideas here. But then there might be something that you like that actually is already on Spotify and already on iTunes. So just let me know if there was any particular things you liked there, because it's fun being able to It's nice to have found a place for these little bits and snippets and snatches of ideas.
I like the snippets. I've had is a very anecdotal piece of research. The over 50s generally are like, wasn't sure about the music, but I like it now.
Well, that's my goal. You gotta just kind of bring people in. Yeah, and I know it's a little bit more bassy and kind of high-tech sounding sometimes than it could be, but I don't know. I put it in and didn't feel like taking it out again in that first edit. I was like, yeah,
that's good. I like some of the bits I really enjoy, and then sometimes I did actually listen to our podcast, the draft podcast, when I was running. Doesn't really work for running, except when occasionally there's a nice bit of upbeat music. I'm like, I need to tell Michael to make sure all the little snippets are really upbeat to help me stay running.
Evenly spaced so that you get intensive effort and then relaxed running. Intensive effort.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I can bear that in mind.
Thank you, please do. Cool.
Okay.
All right, then.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
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 Bye.